If you're new to our channel, we'd love to have you join our little community. Just hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. We promise it will be worth your while.
Angela first spotted Tony on a warm Saturday afternoon in the cosmetics aisle of a local department store. At 16, she was browsing makeup with her friends when she noticed a girl about her age carefully examining different shades of lipstick. There was something captivating about her, the way she held herself, the careful consideration she gave each product. It wasn't until their eyes met in the mirror that Angela realized this wasn't a girl at all, but a boy dressed impeccably as one. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Angela saw a flicker of fear pass through the boy's eyes, clearly worried about being recognized. But instead of judgment or disgust, Angela felt a surge of curiosity and admiration. She smiled warmly, and to her surprise, the boy smiled back, relief evident on his face. "That shade would look great on you," Angela said, pointing to a deep red lipstick in the boy's hand. "You think so?" he replied, his voice soft and slightly higher than a typical teenage boy's. "I'm Tony, by the way. Well, Tony when I'm like this," he added with a nervous laugh. "I'm Angela. It's nice to meet you, Tony," she replied, emphasizing the feminine version of the name. "Would you like some help picking out colors? I love doing makeovers for my friends." Tony's face lit up, and from that moment, an unlikely friendship was born. As they spent the afternoon experimenting with different makeup looks, Angela learned that Tony had been cross-dressing in secret for years. He was gay, and found that expressing his feminine side helped him feel more comfortable in his own skin. However, fear of judgment from his peers and family had kept him isolated. Angela, for her part, found herself drawn to Tony's courage and vulnerability. She'd always been fascinated by the fluidity of gender expression, though she'd never had the opportunity to explore it up close. In Tony, she saw not just a potential friend, but a gateway to a world she'd only dreamed about. As the weeks passed, Angela and Tony's friendship deepened. They began meeting regularly, sometimes with Tony dressed as Tony, other times in his everyday male attire. Angela's house became a safe haven for Tony to express himself freely, away from the judgmental eyes of others. One afternoon, as they lounged in Angela's room, Tony confided in her about his struggles to find a romantic relationship. "It's hard enough being gay in high school," he sighed, "but add cross-dressing to the mix and it feels impossible. Guys either want me to be ultra-feminine all the time or completely masculine. No one seems to understand that I'm both." Angela listened sympathetically, her heart aching for her friend. "You'll find someone who loves all of you, Tony. I know it." As she spoke the words, she felt a twinge of something unfamiliar, a mixture of protectiveness and longing that she couldn't quite place. As their high school years progressed, Angela and Tony became inseparable. They supported each other through the ups and downs of teenage life, failed tests, family drama, and, of course, romantic pursuits. While Tony continued to struggle with finding a partner who accepted all aspects of his identity, Angela dated casually but never felt truly satisfied. It wasn't until her senior year that Angela began to understand why. She found herself daydreaming about a partner who could be both strong and vulnerable, masculine and feminine. Someone who understood the beauty of fluidity in gender expression. In short, she realized she was looking for someone like Tony, but not Tony himself, as their relationship had always been purely platonic. As graduation approached, Angela and Tony faced the bittersweet reality of parting ways for college. They had chosen different universities, Angela pursuing a degree in psychology, while Tony opted for fashion design. The night before they were set to leave, they sat on the roof of Angela's house, looking up at the stars. "I'm going to miss this," Tony said softly. "Miss you." Angela reached out and squeezed his hand. "We'll always be best friends, Tony. Distance can't change that." As they sat in comfortable silence, Angela felt a sense of anticipation mixed with her sadness. They were on the cusp of adulthood, ready to embark on new adventures and discoveries. Little did they know how intertwined their paths would remain, or the complex web of relationships that awaited them in the years to come. The next morning, as Angela watched Tony's car disappear down the street, she felt a chapter of her life closing. But rather than fear, she felt excitement for what the future might hold. She had a feeling that her journey with Tony was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. The years at university flew by in a whirlwind of classes, parties, and self-discovery for both Angela and Tony. Though separated by distance, they remained close, texting daily and video chatting weekly. Their conversations were a lifeline, a reminder of the unconditional acceptance they'd found in each other. Angela threw herself into her psychology studies, fascinated by the complexities of human behavior and identity. She joined LGBTQ+ advocacy groups on campus, driven by a desire to create a more accepting world for people like Tony. Her dating life, however, remained unfulfilling. She went out with several men, but none of them sparked the connection she craved. Meanwhile, Tony flourished in the more liberal atmosphere of art school. He found a community that celebrated his fluid gender expression, allowing him to explore his identity more openly. He even started performing in drag shows, reveling in the freedom to be fully feminine on stage. During one of their video chats in their junior year, Tony excitedly shared news of his first serious relationship. "His name is Tom," he gushed, his face glowing with happiness. "He's a crossdresser too, Angie. It's like he understands me in a way no one else ever has." Angela felt a complicated mix of emotions: joy for her friend's happiness, curiosity about Tom, and a twinge of something that felt oddly like jealousy. She pushed the latter feeling aside, focusing instead on Tony's excitement. "That's wonderful, Tony. I'm so happy for you," she said sincerely. "Tell me everything about him." As Tony launched into a detailed description of Tom, his sharp wit, his impeccable fashion sense, his kindness, Angela found herself picturing what it would be like to be with someone like that. Someone who could seamlessly move between masculine and feminine, who understood the beauty of gender fluidity. The months passed, and Tom became a regular topic in their conversations. Angela listened as Tony shared his experiences of shopping for clothes with Tom, of the thrill of going out together, both dressed as women. She felt a yearning grow inside her, a desire to be part of that world. Before they knew it, graduation was upon them. As Angela stood in her cap and gown, diploma in hand, she felt a sense of anticipation for the next chapter of her life. She had secured a job at a local mental health clinic, eager to put her degree to use helping others. But more than that, she was excited to be moving back to her hometown and closer to Tony. 2 weeks after graduation, Angela found herself helping Tony move boxes into their shared apartment. They had decided to live together, a decision that felt as natural as breathing. As they unpacked, laughing and reminiscing about their college years, Angela felt truly at home for the first time in years. That evening, sprawled on their new couch surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, Tony turned to Angela with a mischievous glint in his eye. "So, Angie," he said, "now that we're roomies, I have to know, are you ready for the full Tony experience?" Angela laughed, her heart light with happiness. "Bring it on," she replied. "I've been waiting years to raid your wardrobe properly." The next few months were a whirlwind of new experiences. Angela threw herself into her work at the clinic, finding fulfillment in helping others navigate their mental health challenges. In her free time, she and Tony explored the local LGBTQ+ scene together. They went to drag shows, queer-friendly clubs, and support group meetings. Angela reveled in the diversity and acceptance she found in these spaces, feeling like she had finally found her tribe. Tony, for his part, secured a job as a costume designer for a local theater company. He thrived in the creative environment, his talent for fashion and his understanding of gender expression making him an invaluable asset to the team. His relationship with Tom continued to flourish, and Tom became a regular presence in their apartment. It was during one of Tom's visits that Angela's life took an unexpected turn. She had come home from work to find Tony and Tom in the living room, both fully dressed as women. They were laughing, sipping wine, and looking absolutely stunning. Angela felt her breath catch in her throat at the sight. Tom turned to her, smiling warmly. "Angela, come join us. We're celebrating I just got a promotion at work." As Angela sat down with them, accepting a glass of wine, she found herself unable to take her eyes off Tom. In his feminine persona, he was breathtakingly beautiful. His long legs were accentuated by a sleek pencil skirt, his makeup flawless, his wig styled in elegant waves. But it wasn't just his appearance that captivated her. It was the confidence he exuded, the seamless way he moved between masculine and feminine energy. Throughout the evening, Angela found herself engaging more and more with Tom. They discussed everything from politics to philosophy, their conversation flowing effortlessly. She was drawn to his intelligence, his wit, and the gentle way he interacted with both her and Tony. As the night wore on, Angela felt a familiar longing grow inside her. She recognized the feeling. It was the same one she'd had years ago when she first realized she was attracted to the idea of being with a crossdresser. But this time, it wasn't just an abstract concept. It was real. And it had a name. Tom. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt. She was developing feelings for her best friend's boyfriend. The thought filled her with a mixture of excitement and guilt. As she excused herself to go to bed, her mind was reeling with the implications of her revelation. Lying in bed that night, Angela stared at the ceiling, her thoughts a tangled mess. She knew she would never act on her feelings. Tony's friendship meant everything to her, and she would never do anything to jeopardize that. But she couldn't deny the attraction she felt towards Tom, or the way he seemed to embody everything she had ever wanted in a partner. Little did Angela know, this night was just the beginning of a complex web of relationships and emotions that would shape the next chapter of her life. As she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The months following Angela's realization of her feelings for Tom were a roller coaster of emotions. She threw herself into her work at the clinic, using it as a distraction from the complicated tangle of her personal life. But living with Tony meant that Tom was a frequent visitor, and each encounter left Angela feeling both exhilarated and guilty. One evening, as Angela was curled up on the couch with a book, Tony burst into the apartment, his face streaked with tears. Without a word, he collapsed next to Angela, sobbing into her shoulder. Angela held him, her heart breaking for her friend. "Tom and I had a huge fight," Tony finally managed between sobs. He said he's not sure if he wants to be with me anymore." Angela felt a confusing mix of emotions, sympathy for Tony's pain, anger at Tom for hurting her friend, and a tiny, shameful flicker of hope that she immediately tried to extinguish. She pushed her own feelings aside, focusing on comforting Tony. Over the next few weeks, Tony and Tom's relationship remained rocky. They were on again, off again, with Tom frequently showing up at the apartment to talk things through with Tony. During one of these visits, Angela found herself alone with Tom in the kitchen while Tony was on a phone call. Tom leaned against the counter, looking defeated. "I don't know what to do, Angela," he said softly. "I care about Tony, but something's missing. I feel like I can't be my full self with him." Angela's heart raced as she replied, "What do you mean?" Tom sighed. "Tony's amazing, but he only seems interested in me when I'm in girl mode. But I'm not just Marie-Louise, you know? I'm Tom too. I need someone who loves all of me." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Angela opened her mouth to respond, but Tony's return interrupted the moment. As the weeks passed, Tony and Tom's relationship continued to deteriorate. Meanwhile, Angela found herself spending more time with Tom, often under the guise of helping him work through his issues with Tony. They would meet for coffee or take walks in the park, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Angela tried to tell herself that she was just being a good friend to both Tony and Tom, but she couldn't deny the growing connection between them. Tom seemed to understand her in a way no one else ever had, and she found herself opening up to him about her own desires and insecurities. The situation came to a head one rainy evening. Tony was out of town for a work event, and Tom showed up at the apartment soaking wet and visibly upset. He and Tony had broken up for good this time. As Angela helped Tom out of his wet coat, their hands brushed. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through her. Before she could think, Tom had pulled her close, his lips meeting hers in a desperate, passionate kiss. For a moment, Angela lost herself in the kiss, all her pent-up feelings rushing to the surface. But then reality crashed in, and she pulled away, her mind reeling. "We can't," she gasped. "Tony, he's my best friend. I can't do this to him." Tom nodded, looking equally shocked and conflicted. "I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't have. But Angela, I can't deny my feelings for you anymore. You see all of me, Tom and Marie-Louise, and you accept both. That's all I've ever wanted." Angela felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I have feelings for you too," she admitted. "But Tony, I can't hurt him like this. He means too much to me." They agreed to keep their distance, both feeling guilty and confused. But the kiss had changed everything, bringing their unspoken feelings into the open. When Tony returned, Angela was torn. She wanted to confess everything, but she was terrified of losing her best friend. In the end, she decided to keep quiet, hoping her feelings for Tom would fade with time. But fate had other plans. A few weeks later, at a local LGBTQ+ community event, Tony met Marie-Louise, another crossdresser who seemed to capture his attention completely. As Tony became more involved with Marie-Louise, Angela found herself spending even more time with Tom. Their relationship grew slowly, both of them cautious of hurting Tony. But as Tony became more absorbed in his new relationship, it became clear that his romantic feelings for Tom had faded. Finally, Angela and Tom decided to be honest about their feelings. To their surprise and relief, Tony was supportive. "I've seen the way you two look at each other," he said with a sad smile. "I just want you both to be happy." With Tony's blessing, Angela and Tom began dating officially. Angela finally felt like she had found what she had been searching for all along, a partner who understood and embraced all aspects of gender expression, someone who could be both Tom and Marie-Louise, and loved her just as she was. As their relationship deepened, Angela discovered new aspects of herself. She loved helping Tom with his makeup and choosing outfits when he wanted to be Marie-Louise. She also cherished the moments when he was simply Tom, his masculine energy complementing her feminine side perfectly. However, as time passed, new challenges arose. Tom's expectations for their relationship began to shift. He started talking about wanting a more traditional dynamic, with Angela taking on a typical wife role. This conflicted with Angela's desire for an equal partnership, where both partners could express themselves freely. Their disagreements grew more frequent, culminating in a painful breakup. Tom, hurt and confused, sought comfort in the arms of Marie-Louise, the crossdresser Tony had been seeing. To Angela's shock and Tony's heartbreak, Tom and Marie-Louise began an intense relationship, leaving both Angela and Tony feeling betrayed and lost. In the aftermath of this upheaval, Angela made the difficult decision to move out of the apartment she shared with Tony. She needed space to heal and rediscover herself. As she packed her belongings, she couldn't help but reflect on the twists and turns her life had taken since that fateful day in the department store when she first met Tony. Little did she know, her journey of self-discovery and love was far from over. As she closed the door on one chapter of her life, new possibilities were just around the corner, waiting to unfold. In the months following her breakup with Tom and her move to a new apartment, Angela threw herself into her work and personal growth. She started attending therapy, working through the complex emotions stemming from her relationships with Tony and Tom. She also began exploring her own gender expression more deeply, experimenting with androgynous fashion and makeup. Meanwhile, Tony was going through his own struggles. His relationship with Marie-Louise had become increasingly toxic. Marie-Louise, demanding and self-absorbed, had started frequenting a club called the Frock and Heels, where she gained a following of admirers. Tony found himself feeling overshadowed and neglected. One rainy evening, nearly a year after Angela had moved out, she received an unexpected call from Tony. His voice was shaky, filled with a vulnerability she hadn't heard in years. "Angie," he said, "I know it's been a while, but can we talk?" They met at a quiet cafe the next day. As soon as Angela saw Tony, her heart clenched. He looked tired. His usual vibrant energy dimmed. Over steaming cups of coffee, Tony poured out his heart. He told her about how, in an attempt to regain Marie-Louise's attention, He had transformed himself into an even more extravagant version of his feminine persona. He described the wild parties, the constant pressure to be on, the feeling of losing himself in the process. "I don't know who I am anymore, Angie," he confessed, tears welling in his eyes. "I've been so focused on being what everyone else wants me to be. I've forgotten how to just be me." Angela reached across the table, taking Tony's hand in hers. In that moment, all the complicated history between them fell away, leaving only the deep, unconditional friendship that had always been at their core. "Then let's figure it out together," she said softly. "The real you is still in there, Tony. We just need to find him again." Over the next few weeks, Angela and Tony rekindled their friendship. They spent time together, just talking and being themselves, free from the pressures of romantic relationships or societal expectations. They revisited old haunts, reminisced about their high school days, and slowly, Tony began to rediscover himself. One evening, as they sat on the roof of Angela's new apartment building, watching the sunset, Tony turned to her with a look of wonder on his face. "You know," he said, "I think this is the first time in years I felt truly comfortable in my own skin. Not as Tony, not as some exaggerated version of myself, just me." Angela smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I'm glad," she said. "You deserve to be happy, Tony. Just as you are." As the weeks turned into months, Angela and Tony's relationship deepened. They supported each other through the ups and downs of daily life, celebrated each other's successes, and provided comfort during difficult times. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, their feelings for each other began to shift. It was during a casual movie night at Angela's apartment that everything changed. They were curled up on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between them, laughing at a cheesy romantic comedy. As their laughter died down, they found themselves looking at each other, really looking, for the first time in years. In that moment, Angela saw Tony not as the confused teenager she'd met in the department store, not as the heartbroken ex-boyfriend of Tom, but as the complex, beautiful person he'd become. And in her eyes, Tony saw the acceptance, understanding, and love he'd been searching for all along. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, loaded with years of history and newfound understanding. When they pulled apart, they both burst into laughter, giddy with the realization that what they'd been looking for had been right in front of them all along. As they navigated this new dimension of their relationship, Angela and Tony found a balance they'd never experienced before. They embraced each other's fluid identities, supporting and celebrating every aspect of who they were. Tony felt free to express his feminine side without feeling pressured to be Tony all the time, and Angela discovered new facets of her own gender expression. Their journey wasn't without its challenges. They had to work through the baggage of their past relationships, learn to communicate openly about their needs and desires, and navigate the reactions of their friends and family. But through it all, their deep friendship remained the bedrock of their relationship. A year later, Angela and Tony decided to get married. True to their unique journey, they planned 2 ceremonies, one traditional, with Tony in a sharp suit, and another where Tony embraced his Tony persona in a stunning wedding gown. Their wedding was a celebration of love in all its forms, a testament to the beauty of acceptance and the power of being true to oneself. As for Tom and Mary Louise, they had found their own path. Mary Louise had married a wealthy admirer named Charles, who adored her extravagant lifestyle. Tom had found peace with his dual identity, living as both Tom and Marie Louise in a way that felt authentic to him. On the night of their wedding, as Angela and Tony swayed together on the dance floor, Angela couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them to this moment. "Who would have thought," she murmured, "that the shy boy I met in the makeup aisle all those years ago would end up being the love of my life?" Tony smiled, pulling her closer. "I think a part of me always knew," he said softly. "It just took us a while to figure it out." As they danced under the twinkling lights, surrounded by friends and family who loved them for exactly who they were, Angela felt a sense of completeness she'd never experienced before. Their story wasn't a typical romance. but it was theirs, complex, beautiful, and utterly unique. In the end, Angela realized that true love wasn't about finding someone who fit a specific mold or fulfilled a particular fantasy. It was about finding someone who saw you, all of you, and loved every part. And in Tony, she had found just that. As the night wore on and their guests celebrated around them, Angela and Tony held each other close, grateful for the winding path that had led them back to each other. Their journey had been long and often difficult, but as they looked into each other's eyes, they knew that every step had been worth it. For in each other, they had found not just love, but true acceptance, understanding, and the freedom to be their authentic selves. And so, their story, a tale of friendship, self-discovery, and unconventional love, came full circle, proving that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones we never see coming.